Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
How are you all doing this morning? I'm speaking to you from California today. It's wonderful to be with all of you. Peace and blessings. Merhaba, ahlan wa sahlan. Greetings and welcome to the United Nations Environmental Program Faith for the Earth, the initiative Faith for the Earth Dialogue at the UNEA 5.2, Faith for Earth, a Call to Action. I'm your brother in faith and creation, Safed Abed Chadovich. I serve as the Imam and Muslim chaplain at Drew University in Madison, New Jersey, as well as on the board of the Parliament of the World's Religions and co-chair of its Climate Action Task Force. I also have been recently appointed to head the Islamic Society of North America's Office for Interfaith and Community Alliances based in Washington, D.C. I will be the moderator for today's session. Let me take a moment to go over the mechanics of the session. You can find the details of the agenda in the link which you should have received when you registered for the session, and which our team at Faith for the Earth will enter into the chat. We are truly blessed today with an amazing lineup of globally recognized, accomplished, and renowned educators, activists, and leaders dedicated to honoring, protecting, and caring for Mother Earth. Brief bios of each of the speakers and presenters can be found in the UNEP Faith for Earth Dialogue materials provided. We will also post a link in the chat for the link to the bios. I would also encourage and strongly ask that you share your comments and questions in the chat throughout the session. Please indicate the question, if the question is a general one addressed to any of the panelists, or if you're directing it towards a particular presenter. Our respected panelists and speakers will try their best to address as many questions as possible, time allowing, and at the end of their presentations. And we will also try to carry out or cover some of those questions during the wrap out at the end of the session. With that, let me welcome you all again. Assalamu alaikum, shalom alaikum, pax vobiscum shante, namaste. These are just some of the myriad of ways our various faith traditions and spiritualities encourage us to greet one another. In a word, peace. It is both a prayer, a hope, and a commitment to act in a way which brings about just, peaceful, and sustainable future for one another and all God's creatures, our fellow earthlings, great and small, for ourselves, our children, and generations yet to come. Yet neither peace nor justice is possible in a world facing a climate emergency, an existential threat to all life on our planet at home, Mother Earth. For we are running out of time and fast moving towards a critical and unprecedented turning point. Let's take a glimpse at this turning point from a visual statement that was first aired and debuted at the 8th Parliament of the World's Religions, which was hosted for the first time virtually this past October, and which brought together in a safe way the world's global interfaith movement to celebrate the enduring spirit and work of religious and spiritual. Sorry, we are experiencing some technical difficulties. Hopefully we can queue up the video in a minute. Thank you for your patience. No. There we go. Thank you.
In 2021, humankind crossed a critical threshold. COVID and climate change have touched everyone on our planet. Our common lived experience will never be as it was before. Our children and grandchildren will not be able to fully experience the joy and richness of the natural world that shaped our lives and the lives of our grandparents. COVID has already killed more than 5 million people on every continent and drastically altered the lives of hundreds of millions more. Families have been shattered, jobs lost, economies disrupted. Food supplies have been reduced everywhere in the world. Climate change has wiped away entire villages and towns, crippled the productive capacity of thousands upon thousands of hectares of land, raised sea level in every coastal nation, threatening the homes of more than 300 million people, increased the number and severity of hurricanes and the devastation they leave behind, expanded the extent and frequency of major droughts, depleted water supplies, escalated the magnitude and incidence of wildfires around the world, destroyed habitats, everywhere on the planet, and is driving countless species to extinction. COVID-19 and climate change are tragic signs of the Anthropocene age, the geological epoch during which human activity has become the dominant influence on climate and the environment. The consequences of climate change and COVID, like most of the crises in the Anthropocene, fall most heavily on those least responsible for what has happened. Time is up for doing too little, or for doing nothing at all. Life on our planet has changed. Human actions have caused these changes, and their impact will become more severe with each passing day. This is the reality of the Anthropocene. We have become a force of geological proportions. We have caused the climate crisis and diminished the quality of life on Earth. We face a time of great sadness and tragedy. Yet there is still an opportunity. An opportunity to build a just, peaceful, and caring world. But we must have the courage to confront the reality of our actions and profoundly change our behavior today. Something else is changing in 2021. We are not willing to allow ignorance and greed to be the dominant hallmarks of human impact. We are not willing to allow heedless economic interest of a few to dictate the future of all our children. We will not be part of business as usual. Our actions must be aligned with our faith and our ethics, and we must become passionate stewards of our planet. The Anthropocene emergency we face is immensely complex, but the basic problem is easy to understand. It begins with human choices. Our faith traditions call on all of us to acknowledge the damage we have done to our planet and accept the responsibility we each have for the care of creation. We must hold our nation's leaders responsible to these same values. The programs of this convening alone are a testament to our willingness to commit to a world that is nurturing, sustainable, and just. Here is how you can join this effort. First, make the commitment to act. Start by doing 4 things. based on your circumstances and your faith. Make a commitment to a specific, permanent change in your own life. Endorse this statement by adding your commitment on the following URL: parliamentofreligions.org/statement, and send us your comments at powrstatement@parliamentofreligions.org. Share this statement with a person you love. Have a serious conversation about the reality we face and invite them to join us in endorsing this statement. Together, we can change our future. Together. And we will. We will.
So, thank you from the Parliament to the Parliament of the World Religions for presenting that video. While it was aired in 2021, its message is all the more true in 2022. Faith for Earth, a call to action, describes the essential, unshakable reverence that all religions have for creation and nature, and introduces the world's major life support systems. Now to introduce the book, and I hope he's with us, Faith for Earth. We are honored to have my dear brother, Dr. Iyad Awomogli, founder and director of UNEP for Faith for Earth. Take it away, Dr. Iyad.
Thank you, Imam Safet, and thanks to my friends and colleagues and mentors and teachers from the Parliament of World Religions, from the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology. And it's a privilege really to have worked over the past 2 years on producing this excellent and unique publication. Certainly it has the wisdom, the knowledge, the inspirations of all those who have contributed to it. We are very proud at UNEP that we have partnered to produce such an important and rich content for the international community, not only for the faith actors, but it is very important and very useful for everybody on this planet. It is, as has been mentioned many times, it is us who have caused where we are today and the problems that we are facing. And it is us who must work on addressing them. And we have to do that on not only relying on technology or policies, but also on the values and the morals, the spiritual beliefs, and our religions and attitudes must change towards this planet and living in harmony with our natural resources that are limited. As we saw in the video, people are shouting, we do not have planet B. And so we must go to plan B, which is saving Earth from our own making and doing. I am also very pleased that not only we launched the book a year or so ago, but it has been a movement towards making that book relevant and used by different organizations. And it has received many commendations from all over the world. It has been a source for our own courses that we are developing. The wealth of knowledge that is contained there is undisputable. It is not only presenting the perspectives of religions and faiths and spiritual beliefs, but also listing some important case studies and highlighting some important ways and means of actually contributing basing on our religious values and beliefs in making the world a better place to live in. And certainly it will be a contribution to a document that I have been honored to co-author with 9 other international scholars and professionals from around the world to contribute for the main document of the Stockholm Plus 50 conference. And certainly resources in this book will be mentioned and will be highlighted as a moral compass in moving forward in our efforts towards a better future and the world we want. Thank you again, everybody, for your contributions, for your leadership, and for being our distinguished partners. And we will continue to work together for the people and for the planet. Thank you very much.
I think you're still muted, Safet.
Sorry, I had some technical difficulties. I'm back online now. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Thank you, Dr. Iyad. Appreciate very much your words and reflections and to be part of this amazing project to bring the wisdom and the traditions of the world's faiths to the current situation to bring about the change that is needed. It is now my privilege, dear brothers and sisters, and I'm saying this not facetiously, I'm saying this as for all of us are brothers and sisters in humanity, to introduce a couple of sisters and a dear brother who I'm blessed to serve with on the Parliament of the World's Religions, Climate Action Task Force Core Group. They are the editors of The Faith for Earth, A Call to Action. They are going to talk to us about the book, its history, its genesis, content layout, and organization, and so much more. David Hales, Trustee Emeritus of the Parliament of World Religions, former senior diplomat and chief climate negotiator for America, and founding chair of the Parliament's Climate Action Task Force. Dr. Kusumita Peterson, professor at St. Francis College, trustee of the Parliament of the World's Religions, and chair of the Interfaith Center of New York. And Tatiana Brelovsky, author, science journalist, editor, and the executive director of Faith for Earth. It's all yours, David, Kusumita, and Tatiana. Take it away.
It's a pleasure to welcome all of the registrants to this session. The first element of this session is a brief introduction to the book, Faith for Earth, A Call for Action. And it's a pleasure to share this presentation with my partners, Tatiana Brelovskaya and Kusumita Peterson. Tatiana, our superstar editor, will cover the purpose of the book, a bit of its history, the process by which it was developed, and Kusumita Peterson, a tremendous source of wisdom and knowledge, will share how we hope the book will be used. At the end of these presentations and at the end of this session itself, we hope to have plenty of time for questions and comments. Tatiana, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, David, and hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here and very glad that so many of you have joined us. We saw a moment ago, I think, the cover of the book, the first slide, if we can put that back up, or if we already see it. I can't tell if it's visible or not. If it is possible, we would be great to get it up on the screen. Asmira, maybe you could make
Can I
that
get
happen.
information from the participants? Can you see my screen? I'm sharing an image.
I see only
See the cover page.
does everybody see that? Because I don't, but that's okay.
It's there in the thumbnails. You may have to click on it to bring it up.
Okay.
I see it in the thumbnails on the corner.
Is there a way to make it big on the screen? I don't think there's anything I can do to do that.
I think each of the registrants can click on it and it will become the large
There.
image on the
Okay,
screen.
it just did that. Never mind. All right. So this is new. This platform is new for me. So this is exciting. So let me just begin with a little bit of background. Faith for Earth is a new book, but it's also a sequel to an earlier UNEP partnership publication that was called Earth and Faith, a book of reflection for action. And that was published and widely distributed over 20 years ago now. It described the environmental traditions and teachings of the world's religions in light of the urgent environmental issues we were dealing with at that time. So, as we all know, sadly, circumstances have gotten worse in the last 20 years. The environmental impact of our actions and our choices continues to escalate. We hear more of this all the time, and it has brought us to the climate and sustainability crises that we face today. However, at the same time, and very importantly, the world's faith communities are becoming increasingly active, an increasingly active force on behalf of the environment. So because of both these things, UNEP with EAD and the Parliament's Climate Action Task Force agreed that it was time for a new updated book with a new title and an explicit call for action this time. So Faith for Earth, A Call for Action is that book. We wrote and designed it as an introductory reference, an overview of the impact that climate change is having on Earth's major ecosystems, and also a look at the growing response to this crisis by faith communities around the world. The book begins with examples of faith teachings about humanity's responsibility to the environment. The selections in that section are drawn from there's a wide net. They're drawn from indigenous traditions from around the world and the Indic, East Asian, and Abrahamic religions. All that is followed by a summary of major points of environmental agreement among all the faiths represented in the book. The second part is the Earth section, and it introduces 7 of Earth's major ecosystems and their, what I think of as their global drivers: land and forests, fresh water, the ocean, ice and frozen ground, the atmosphere, biodiversity, and the human population. And it discusses the impact that anthropogenic climate change is having in each category, as well as including brief summaries of UNEP programs and projects going on around the world. So there are live links throughout the book that connect to websites with more information and resources about each topic. The over 18-month process of writing and publishing Faith for Earth depended on a remarkable team of people. And if we could have the second slide, that would be one way to get a sense of what that was about. I'm sure it's there somewhere. So Asmira, if you could find slide number 2, that would be terrific. Or I can just keep talking. There, okay, that's a lot of people for this book, for a book. But it was extremely important that they were there. I should start with the fact that fortunately for this project, Kusamita was a co-author of the earlier Faith for Earth book that I mentioned. And as author of the new faith section of this book, she provided us with context and continuity throughout the whole process. Working very closely with her were Faith Consulting editors. There you see in the first column, Mary Evelyn Tucker and John Grimm from the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology, and Jeffrey Long, professor of religion and Asian studies at Elizabethtown College. In addition, there were 25 editorial advisors who reviewed our drafts and contributed critical perspective directly from their congregations and the faith communities on the ground. So going further, David is the author of the Earth section, and he was assisted by 2 consulting editors, Brenda Eckwurzel from the Union of Concerned Scientists and Ed Maibach, director of George Mason University's Center for Climate Change Communication. The book also had an excellent design director who was able to make each page just come to life. We wanted each of the more than 100 images that are in the book to carry a compelling message in its own right, and to keep readers turning pages and make sure they'd find something that would draw them in with every click of their mouse. So to illustrate that, I guess if we can get slide number 3, it's just taken from the book. The next 2 slides will be like that. This is kind of what we're talking about. This is an image of the Sikh Gurdwara in San Jose, California, that was one of our favorite photographs. And there really isn't time to tell the story of this image, I don't think, but it required a team effort to acquire it and then make sure that it was the right quality to use in this very dramatic format. And we've gotten a lot of wonderful feedback about this image and about so many of the others in the book. But just coming across this as you're reading is part of the appeal, I think, of Faith for Earth, because every page gives you something to look at like that. So the 4th slide shows 2 facing pages from the ocean chapter. So if we could see that, yeah, I think it's up already. And that's another case where images not only illustrate the text, but also speak for themselves. We have the juxtaposition of the plastic pollution in the ocean, and then the coral reef on the facing page, which is, again, just a lovely image. That particular, those 2 pages have a tremendous amount of information. There's 2 examples of UNEP projects, as well as a number of other informative text about different topics around what's happening in the ocean. So you can learn something on every page of this book. And I should say that EAD and UNEP's program directors worked with us throughout the whole process, and ultimately reviewed and approved the book's final text and all the images before publication. So I guess to wind up, it was critical to us that the book be available and easily usable by a diversity of people in a wide range of settings. So from college classrooms to community organizations, congregations, environmental groups. So we published it both as a limited run of printed copies, which are lovely to have and to hold, but more importantly, in an online format as a PDF available for free download by anybody, anywhere with an internet connection. So the 5th slide, the last slide, shows two ways that we can do that. So slide number 5 is just the 2 URLs, both at the UNEP and at the Parliament, that if you get to that or send that to anyone, they can get on that online and download the entire book. I just want to say personally, it's wonderful to know that Faith for Earth is being welcomed, downloaded, and used in a growing number of settings. That's exactly what we hope will keep happening. And so, Kusamita, do you want to speak to us about the uses of the book already underway and where we hope it might go from here? Thank you, everyone.
Can everyone hear me? Am I on? Can you hear me?
You're on.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tatiana. I will be brief. First, I just want to think back, and it's more than 20 years when Mary Evelyn and I were part of the Interfaith Partnership on the Environment that met in the offices of UNEP in New York, here in New York City. And she was very much involved in the first publication, which looked like this. It was, and there really wasn't a publication like it. And I think there still isn't one that's quite like this on this level, with all of the visuals and the essential teachings from the different traditions. So the new Faith and Earth book is being used right now in about a dozen colleges and universities, and these include Memorial University in Newfoundland, St. John, Newfoundland, Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. And we're going to hear more from Laurel Kearns about its use at Drew University Theological School, Yale University, and Seattle University, and my own college, St. Francis College. And I, in the fall, taught a honors seminar, The Environmental Crisis in the World's Religions. And at St. Francis College, many of the students are very much rooted in their faith, in their churches and other religious communities. And yet they didn't know, and you'll find this all around, we weren't quite aware of the connection between the religious traditions and the environmental crisis. And people might not even be aware what my own tradition teaches about our relation to nature. And so the students, these are undergraduate students, felt not only awakened, but I would say encouraged and empowered. They want to act in the environmental crisis. They want to do something. And they also now have the resources for doing that because, and again, in large part because of the Forum on Religion and Ecology, but there's been a tremendously growing body of scholarship on the world's religions, and the theological research has been done. We now know what the essential teachings of the traditions are on environmental ethics, and the consensus or agreement has been really well established, and UNEP has published it 3 times. It was a 2016 conference on religion, culture, and the environment, and that report also published the points of agreement. So we can take that as a solid basis for action. It's non-controversial. And since the PDF of, as Tatiana was saying, the PDF of the book is free, and we'll put the links for downloading it in the chat, we hope that not only colleges and universities, but all kinds of discussion groups, informal study processes, and groups in religious communities and NGOs will be using the book, because there's no limit to, the PDF is free, and we want it to be as widespread as possible. Thank you so much. And now we're going to hear more about the actual current implementation.
Mary Evelyn, I think we're moving over to you now.
Hold on one second. Thank you so much for a wonderful summary and insight into the writing and bringing into existence of the Faith for Earth, a Call to Action book, and for info on how people, students of faith, students of any traditions or all traditions in any discipline can order it and have access to it. This will be posted again in the chat. Thank you so much for that. We have thus far discussed the crying need for this book and its content and authorship. Now we return our direction towards its messages and towards its usages. For a look on how the book has been and is being used in higher education and possible future uses, both in person and online courses, we are joined today by my sister, Dr. Mary Evelyn Tucker, senior lecturer at Yale University and co-director at the Yale Forum of Religion. We're also joined today, and I think he's going to be in person, by my dear brother, Reverend Dr. Michael Ray Trice, Sphere and Halligan Professor and Director at the Seattle University Center for Ecumenical and Interreligious Engagement, and my dear sister and mentor of my MA thesis, Dr. Laurel Kearns, co-founder of the Green Seminary Initiative and professor of Religion and Society at Drew Theological School. Handing it over to you, Mary Evelyn.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to all who are joining in here today, and to colleagues who we've worked with for many, many years, like Kusamita, as she mentioned. It's been a 25-year journey in this work, and we're so thrilled that UNEP Faith for Earth and Iyad Abu Moghali has picked this up in such an effective way, because our work 20 years ago with UNEP in their New York office was, of course, very rich and important, but I would say that Iyad has brought it up to another level, and this whole series represents that. And I want to say, since David was very modest, but as Ursula Goodenough will attest, the science side of this book is very strong and very, very helpful for religious leaders and communities who are trying to get up to speed on the environmental problems and issues, and especially the way they integrated climate change into major topics like land, ocean, and so on. So I would just like to say, as part of the work with Faith for Earth, we've developed this website, which I hope will be useful to many of you in the book, because it complements the book clearly. As you can see, there's different world religions, climate change, Laudato Si, going across the top, eco-justice, publications, and so on, resources. And so what I'm going to talk about is how we're using this book, excuse me, in online classes. Along with this website. So, so let me just move through these slides again to say that as the book indicates, and as the website complements, we have the Western religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, the Asian religions, Hinduism, indigenous religions, which is my husband John's specialty, and sections on interreligious dialogue and the importance of the religions coming together, and using a book like this, both in online courses and in their community discussions. Now, on the website that complements the book, we have overview essays. Just like the book, they're also short. And we're using this combination in the courses. We have bibliography of resources of books and all kinds of media resources and articles. We have sacred texts, which expand what's in the book. And we have engaged projects from all over the world, which are very, very inspiring of what's happening on the ground with these various religions and their work with SDGs and with climate change, with biodiversity, and with pollution. Now, the book, as has already been said, is beautifully done and accessible to a wide audience, and that's why we're using it in these online classes that we are just launching. This one on Confucianism, as my colleague Kusamita will know, because we both studied with this wonderful Professor DeBerry at Columbia, that this tradition, while less known than the others, perhaps has influenced more people than almost any other tradition, Hinduism being the exception, perhaps. But the sense of a universe, earth, and humans coming together for the sense of working towards a common goal for preserving the earth. That's the heart of Confucianism. It's an educational system that for 2,500 years has had this kind of a teaching and needs to be brought forward as we retrieve, reevaluate, and reconstruct these traditions in their form now. So Confucianism, like all of them, have a great deal to offer. And clearly, indigenous traditions, which have preceded the so-called major world religions, are now truly coming into their own in terms of the traditional environmental knowledge, the sense of the sacredness of the whole earth, sacred places, communities, preserving, restoring, is absolutely exploding, as this section shows, and as the course will also complement. So we've just launched in January, Religions and Ecology, Restoring the Earth Community, with this wonderful book as its centerpiece, as its heart, with other readings to complement it. But the main themes here in these Coursera online classes with Yale are biodiversity, climate emergency, food systems, diversity of voices, and eco-justice, which I would suggest is probably one of the most important things, pulling together social justice, climate justice, and environmental concerns, the human and the planet. And this book, again, illustrates this beautifully. So the courses, there's 6 courses altogether. The first is an introduction, which highlights why ecology, which again this book has in the second section, why ecology is related to the concerns of the world's religions as a moral force, but also why the holistic understanding of ecology is absolutely central to bringing together the teachings of the world's religions from their scriptures and traditions. Indigenous religions, as I've mentioned, John Grimm, my husband, has done interviews from all over the planet of people working on restoration of forests, of rivers, of fisheries from the point of view of traditional environmental knowledge. The South Asian traditions, we have, of course, Buddhists here protecting trees, ordaining trees, and I'll say which of the religions are going to be included. East Asian religions from China, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore. South Asia, of course, is India and Southeast Asia, and the diaspora of these 2 great countries, India and China, all over the world. Western religions, Islam, obviously Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now, these 5 courses can be taken as a specialization, again, with this wonderful book at its heartbeat. And there's a separate course on Christianity and ecology. There's 2 billion Christians, and the impact is growing. So we welcome everyone into these courses, obviously. I've mentioned that the introduction is a starting point leading into the other tradition. It highlights this moral force. We like to say what we're trying to create is an academic field so that colleges, universities, seminaries, and we've been delighted to work with Laurel over the years on greening of seminaries, but as well as an academic field, we need this moral force in the larger society. And this course prepares learners for the other courses. So indigenous religions, here's a gateway for the contributions of indigenous peoples worldwide for environmental understanding and the leadership, the projects that have emerged on every continent, Africa, Asia, the Americas, the Pacific regions. We highlight the Hokulea voyages in the Pacific, where the recovery of traditional navigational techniques over hundreds of years has created a renaissance of Hawaiian religions, culture, and values, for example. The South Asian religions, once again, this gateway into religions, philosophies, practices on the ground, tree planting in Hindu temples across India. The traditions that are included are Hinduism, Jainism, yoga, Buddhism, Sikhism, and the Baha'i faith, because they're the largest number of Baha'i are in India. And Faith for Earth covers all of these beautifully. So the East Asian traditions, this gateway into these 2,500-year-old traditions of Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, Shinto, and shamanism, which is across the world, really. But again, Faith for Earth is the beginning place for the learners in these courses. And Western religions, gateway, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, we have wonderful examples emerging. The green Sabbath of Judaism, Christianity, the Pope's encyclical Laudato Si, is gaining traction in so many communities around the world. And Islam has this new statement of mizan, of balance. And the beauty of the scriptures of each of these Abrahamic traditions is coming forward in new and very, very vibrant ways. A course was just taught this semester at Yale Divinity School on the animistic dimensions of the Hebrew Bible, for example. So we're making some amazing progress, really. And again, Faith for Earth complements all of this. So Christianity, with its rich resources and its varied approaches from the Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant traditions. And I want to give a big shout out to the Greek Orthodox Patriarch, who's of course highlighted in Faith for Earth, Bartholomew, often called the Green Patriarch. And he, along with the Pope, have been tremendous leaders within the Christian traditions for many, many years. The Archbishop of Canterbury, too. I think I see David Shreve on this call. He's done marvelous work on in England on these issues. So environmental justice, creation care, biodiversity, climate change. So concluding here, the courses on Coursera are accessible to a general audience. It can start anytime. They can work at your own pace. You audit the course for free. You can take courses separately or together as a specialization, as I mentioned. And you can engage with community members to deepen your knowledge. And the community mentors are some wonderful Yale students who are helping with this. So just to conclude, here are the 6 courses, and Faith for Earth is a marvelous centerpiece of the courses, and several thousand people have already signed up and are using this this marvelous book. So we thank you all, colleagues, and delighted to be working with UNEP on this effort. And congratulations to IAD once again for this series that you're creating these next 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mary Evelyn. I don't know if Laurel is on or Michael.
I think it's
you're supposed to. Hello.
I'm happy to, or whichever.
Michael, yeah, Michael, please go ahead. I know you had a video also. I don't know if you're going to be able to key it up and show that.
Sure, it's just a 6-minute video. I'll be very brief. This, what you're about to see, is a modest guide created by students in an effort to amplify the main text. And so I encourage us to see that video now. It's about 6 minutes, as I mentioned.
Greetings, friends and colleagues everywhere. I'm Michael Retrice, and I hold the Spear-Halligan Professorship and serve as Director of the Center for Ecumenical and Interreligious Engagement at Seattle University in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. I'm pleased and I'm grateful today to present on the theme of our session in appreciation of the text, Faith for Earth, a Call to Action. I also want to recognize with appreciation those who created this text, including colleagues at the Parliament of the World's Religions Climate Action Task Force, the UN Environment Program Faith for Earth Initiative, and of course, the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology. Seattle University is a strong regional university with an international reputation for research, teaching, and service that are constitutive ways in which faculty, staff, and students show up in the world with both spiritual discernment and moral and public agency. The Center at Seattle U shares with you, all over the world, a deep commitment to facing the existential challenges of climate change, of ecological degradation, and of the threats to biodiversity across our world. This said, our center hopes that we are living by example with you and providing some inspiration for how we believe many university communities can attend to a strategic initiative that we hold dear at Seattle U, to reimagining curriculum, to promoting new ways for student excellence and opportunities in the world, and to accentuate meaningful growth in our lives and in society today. This said, the center created a guide that amplifies the main Faith for Earth, a Call to Action text. The guide is used with these in both communities and classrooms, and it's available for students, faculty, religious leaders, community leaders, and civic leaders everywhere. Because our existential climate-based challenges continue to become more apparent to us over time, the guide is also meant to be flexible so that local actors can take it and revise it. And by assessing it through the free Canvas Commons available far and wide to universities and educational facilities, they can help the resource to evolve along the way. Following an introduction of the resource, the guide provides access to the main text, and each module is like an accordion, providing access to voices and text and podcasts with renowned religious and political influencers, to emerging experiences, and is also inclusive of questions for use. As an example of revision, along the way the guide also added what we felt was a natural evolution to the text, with the inclusion of a section devoted to the voices of youth and young adults, leadership all around the world, who are leading in local communities and municipalities for direct change today. Just as the Faith for Earth text is replete with beautiful images of living religious traditions and spiritual pathways and indigenous wisdom, the Center for Ecumenical and Interreligious Engagement decided to amplify voices of expressions of our humanity, reading portions of the primary text itself. Some of us are better at reading. Others appreciate the spoken voice. And most all of us enjoy hearing the story told by others on their own terms. This presentation is important to us at the Center because we desire also for other university communities to take this guide and build in ways that evolve next steps. So here's how we started, and we recommend it and commend it to you. First, identify your moral purpose. Our students, staff, and faculty met, and we identified our core values in a moral universe and our mutual desire to respond in particular ways within that universe. Gen Z in particular today shows us that our work is about making space for opportunities in the world that require our fullest engagement. Second, find your natural collaborators. We recognized here as well that the climate crisis is a spiritual crisis first. Because Seattle University is a Jesuit university, in the heritage of Jesuit universities all around the world, our next step now includes reaching out to those colleagues and friends everywhere. We were also blessed to work with strong partners identified above, and we drew from their inspiration. It's important to find your collaborators. And third, be open to new discovery. The guide taught students and staff that we can interview religious leaders and influencers on the topics of care for creation, believing that Pope Francis's call for all of us to live inwardly what we desire outwardly, with a deep integrated internal ecology of the self, modeled in the interior dynamics of the life of the divine, meant that we would create podcasts through our Religica laboratory that continue to grow today. Where the guide falls short on this resource, that's my responsibility as the director. But where we ascend, we do so together, alongside others. I encourage you to use this guide, download it, and share it widely. And even as you consult experts out there, let me encourage you to draw upon the inner ecological strengths of your academic and spiritual communities where you are, in your area. Visit the center at the link on the screen. You can also write to me at tricem@seattleu.edu with questions. Know of our desire to collaborate with you as well in this remarkable world that we share. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Michael. Some other words before we move on to Laurel? Thank you so much. Laurel Kearns, if you're on.
I'm so thrilled to be here, and I want to thank you for being a part of this. I have long been using the materials from UNEP since, such as that first book. I moved to my current position in 1994. And I'm also honored to be in this session with people who work with organizations who have done such amazing work. The Forum on Religion and Ecology, the Parliament of World Religions, and UNEP. And I just want to say that all of the wonderful learning opportunities I've already been learning about will be passed on to my students. Those students attend Drew Theological School and Drew University, which we call the University of the Forest. It's a multi-denominational school located outside of New York City, but its main affiliation is with United Methodist Church. And that means that we have a very diverse student body and a growing international body. And indeed, Methodists coming to us from around the globe deeply, deeply enrich our classes. This book is such a gift for the kind of work I do. A few years ago, we went through a curriculum transformation to ask ourselves, what do future religious leaders need to know? How can we help them shape their leadership? And out of that came a series of what we call rooted courses in our MDiv program. They reflect, to varying degrees, 4 shared values: anti-racism, gender and sexuality, interfaith action and dialogues, and eco-justice. These all shape the course I teach, Global Faith in the Earth, but particularly the latter two. And so I just want to pause a moment to say that how proud I am to be at a theological school that decided that students in their second semester of their coursework should take a class on global faith and the earth. Because they're located all over the globe now, having something that's a PDF and accessible has been really important. And so I want to just give you this snapshot of how I see it in the classroom. The combination of pictures, scriptures, verses, statements by major organizations and figures introduces students to a range of perspectives and resources, far more than I can do. And so it's such a compliment to what I'm trying to do in the classroom. And those visuals are really important. So the folks who spent all the time on the Sikh Gurdwara with the solar panels, thank you. Because all of these resources catch our students' attention and their imagination. And I've watched them use the statements and prayers for interfaith services at Drew, such as a seed blessing. And I know they've used it in conducting study sessions in their congregations, and it shows up in their final projects. I want to particularly focus on how important the range within each religious tradition is. Many students that I work with have a narrow or static image of other religious traditions. Some of them have had very little real engagement or exposure. And so that range, say within Judaism or Christianity or Islam or all the other ones, but I focus on those 3 because those are the ones that our students think they have perhaps the most knowledge of, is really important because they become aware of figures and different denominational streams, we might call it. So here's an example. In the Christianity section that I just taught last week, where students were really caught by the patriarch, the Orthodox patriarch Bartholomew's statement about the notion of environmental degradation as sin. That caught their imagination, no matter how many times it might have already come up in the class, that awareness and also how long ago that statement was made. Or here's another example. I have a Black Episcopalian student whose attention was really caught by thinking about the Christian ritual of the Eucharist or the communion in terms of interaction with the earth and what where the elements of the bread and the wine came from, or the juice. And that allowed me to ask students to think about, what did it mean if the elements of a communion service, the grains and the grapes, were polluted? If the workers were sprayed or worked in terrible conditions, how could those elements then be, in Christian language, a sacrament? And so that's what I love, is that different things, all those are things from the same unit, catch different students' attention. In the section on Islam, which we're currently working on, it's become very apparent to me that students have never read anything in the Quran. Not all, but some of my students. And so that's why this course is so important. And for them to be able to look over the different verses that have been selected and to start thinking about them in relation and resonance with both the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian scriptures that they know has been really important. And I just want to say how fortunate we are that Imam Safik Jadovich will be coming to class, as he has been every year, to help illuminate that tradition. So I hope that gave you a snapshot of how it works in a classroom. My classroom is predominantly Christian, definitely predominantly Protestant. And so they may be aware of a range within Protestantism, but they certainly often have limited notions, or we might say stereotype notions, of other traditions. So I just want to pass on my gratitude to all of the folks who sent so much work in it, and particularly my gratitude to Kusamita, who helped me start using it last year already. So this is the second year of using it in the classroom, and it's just a really wonderful resource. So Michael, I look forward to looking over your guide, passing that on to students, because I really want them to use this in their congregations. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all. Knowledge indeed is power. Thank you for sharing your important work as educators. It's truly amazing the multiple ways in which you provide access to students of all ages and backgrounds so that they can learn about Mother Earth and responsibilities towards her and our fellow earthlings, and the ways of our faiths and spiritualities that can enable, empower, strengthen us in being good stewards, caretakers, and guardians of Mother Earth. Wonderful. We'll hopefully have a chance to get to the Q&A a little bit, but we have one more part to complete. So thank you again. Science and technology in the Western world has often played itself out or been played by others over history, either in opposition to or in contradistinction to religion, theology, and the social sciences. Given the urgency of the existential threat to all planetary life on our planet brought about by anthropogenic climate change, I'm reminded of the slogan and the call to arms. The 300,000 of us gathered in New York City in 2014, representing over 1,000 different organizations, including labor unions, faith communities, environmental activists, justice groups, educational institutions, human rights groups, indigenous peoples, next geners, and scientists at the historic People's Climate March, chanted during the march. In order for us to change everything, we need everyone. To paraphrase the mission of Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology on its website, we need to cultivate dialogue within religious, spiritual communities and in partnership with scientists and policymakers in order to find the comprehensive, collaborative solutions to our global environmental crisis. To these ends, I'm happy to welcome our dear sister, Dr. Ursula Goodenough, professor at Washington University, to speak with us about the scientific relevance of Faith for Earth, a call to action. Welcome, Ursula Goodenough.
I'm very proud to be here. I was, am I here? Do you hear me? Yes? Okay. Great. So I was invited by Mary Evelyn Tucker to represent the scientific community, which is a rather awesome and intimidating project. But I represent a community that has often been regarded, and often correctly regarded, as being anti-religious, anti-spiritual, technologically driven, profit-driven, all sorts of very damaging and I think only partially correct characterizations of this community. For sure, just as in the religious community, I might add, there are bad apples. But there are many, many scientists who are deeply concerned about the climate crisis and sustainability. There are many of us who are working very hard to do that. And I very much hope that as this book goes forward, the importance of our science-based understandings of nature take their important place in our thinking and in our spiritual engagement with the planet. These science-based understandings have been developed by humans since the dawn of humanity, when our first ancestors learned the properties of metals for making implements and cooking devices, and learned how agriculture works by noticing how plants form their seeds. This is not some new 21st century project by any means. Humans have always been curious about how life works, and that nature works, and we have come up with very, very fascinating sets of understandings about how it all works, which are directly involved in what is now unfolding in terms of ecological crisis. I would like to lift up in this context a statement that many of you are probably familiar with from Baba Dioum of Senegal, who said in 1968, "In the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught." Our teachings from our religious and faith and cultural communities are critical for generating this love. I would say that it also comes from understandings about the dynamics of the natural world and how they interact to create the planetary matrix that we inhabit. So to this end, and speaking now directly to the book, I was thrilled with the book. The book has excellent materials, the second part of the book, on all of the major systems that constitute our planetary matrix, the atmosphere, the oceans, the ice caps, and so on. The information is accurate, it is accessible, and it should, and I hope will, inspire students who may in the past have even been science phobic to click on some of the many resources that are given in these sections and become more familiar with and less maybe hostile towards our scientific understandings. The whole point of the project that is so excitingly going on here is to establish a global community of concern and of action. And the science community is queued up to be a part of this and to participate in what we do going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ursula, for your informative presentation on the importance of science to collaborate with religion for a sustainable future for us all. Now I'm going to take a moment, and I think we're running close to the hour, and get a word in from our technical support team. Do we have time still for some questions and answers, or we need to go to conclusion?
You have, what is it, 12 minutes left. So yes, we can take some questions and
okay, wonderful.
engage.
Wonderful. And I don't have easy access to the questions. I know there was a couple of them that were online, but what I would suggest is if you can, our technical experts from UNEP who are helping to run this wonderful webinar, if you could enter some of the questions, or if some of you have seen some of the questions, please feel free to share or to question or comment with one another among the panelists.
We ask anyone with a question to please raise their hand, and you can see the raise hand button at the top of your screen. But Imam Safed, there's one question for Mary Evelyn from Richard Johnson, and he's asking, could you please mention briefly the collaboration that you and John had with Gus Speth, former UNDP administrator at the Yale School of Forestry?
Thank you so much for that question. It's so funny. I had it in my notes, but I overlooked it because Gus Speth, who was head of administrator at UNDP, but also founded World Resources Institute, was in the Carter administration, the Environmental Quality Board, and so many others, and was our dean here at Yale and brought us here to the School of the Environment and helped start a joint program with the Forest, it was called Forest School then, but Environment School and the Divinity School, because he said, after 40 years of working in the policy field, he's a lawyer and founded NRDC, Natural Resources Defense Council, the legal arm of the environment here in the US. And he founded that coming out of Yale. But he said after law, policy, and science, as Ursula said so beautifully, that's the base note here, but that policy and law and science haven't been able to make the transformations that we need. And that's why he had us come to Yale, because he said the issues of religion, spirituality, ethics, everything that's contained in this beautiful gem of a book is what he felt was missing from the environmental discussions. And it's still taking a long time in some ways, to be frank. As Father knows, he asked this question earlier, of science and religion, scientists still not fully understanding the religions and their role here. But I think we've got a great opportunity with UNEP Faith for Earth in this book, and the kind of work that Laurel's doing, and Michael and many others, to break down this barrier. And certainly Iman Safed as well, so many of you doing this great work. So thanks for that question. Big shout out to Gus Speth.
Dr. Iyad, they're just looking further up. There's a question from Peter, and Peter would like, perhaps carrying over the conversation that we just had on the launch of the online courses, would there be an interest on an online course on plastic consumerism, circular economy? Somehow, circular economy and eco-spirituality have a strong connection as all life is circular. And Peter says that he would be interested on co-creating this course on these interrelated topics or themes. Yeah?
Yes, thank you, Esmaira. Thank you, Peter, for this proposal. And it very much goes along the triple planetary crisis that we are focusing on, pollution, ecosystem degradation, and climate change. So we have already worked with CEIE on the climate change and ecosystem degradation, and it would be very relevant to work on pollution. As you know, today and over the next 2 weeks, the permanent representatives and member states are discussing a global treaty or a statement or a convention on pollution. So that fits very well into corresponding or replying to the relevant priorities of the environmental movement that everybody's moving forward with, introducing pollution and especially plastic pollution into this. So we will consider this. We will discuss it with our partners at CEIE as we are preparing a list of new courses to be developed. So a short answer is yes, and we will take it on board. Thank you.
I see a hand from Dr. Medani.
Hello, namaste and greetings to everybody. Actually, I'm also a fan of the book, And I posted before that I have cited the book already in my paper and in my book. And then I will also post the test again, and where I have explicitly talk about the book. So it is a wonderful, wonderful book. So thank you for those such a wonderful contribution to all the contributors. And then also I see this, we really need to go this direction, because until unless we catch the feeling of the people and then we united together, I don't think we can make a real change. So to make a real change, actually, we really need to unite, and then all the like-minded people, we really need to be together to address this issue. So it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful event, and then thank you very much. And I have about 10 books, including the inequality in 4 books and climate change 3 books, and this the role of the IPCC 1. So
thank you very much, Dr. Medani. It would be great if you can type those books in the chat so people can have access to them.
Sure, I will do that.
That would be wonderful. Appreciate your comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And
Wonderful.
I see the last hand from Mumbangizi.
Thank you very much. I also add appreciation to the book. I just want to maybe hear a comment from those who have read, because I've not read it, whether there is a kind of continuity with the other tradition of those who have made an effort to bridge science and religion and theology, like Teilhard de Chardin and I think Thomas Berry, and also I think Brian, though there is a kind of a new discussion about the new story of the universe. And if maybe that kind of connection can be made, maybe that might be a breakthrough in terms of this discussion we are having between science and religion. So I want to hear any comment whether these thoughts have kind of been featured or factored in the book. Thank you.
If I could just jump in here, as with my husband and John and I, with the Teilhard Association here in the US for 40 years and working closely with Thomas Berry, I'm so grateful for that question. And Kusamita, of course, is very empathetic to it because she knew Thomas Berry and Teilhard de Chardin's work, and I know Laurel is as well. So I think that's such a good point. And while it isn't in this particular book, I think the larger sense of the cosmological dimension of the world's religions is what's critical. Koyama, a professor at Union Seminary, used to say the Asian traditions have a sense of cosmology and nature naturally. The Western traditions have more history and eschatology. And so that's a big difference. And I think this is why the indigenous and the Asian traditions are critical, but also this larger sense that we're part of a planetary story, a cosmic story, a universe story. So I really thank you, because Teilhard and Thomas Berry, of course, were ingenious leaders on that, along with Brian Swim. So thank you so much, Father.
And thank you all. How are we doing with time, Asmir?
2 minutes to go.
Okay. What I'd like to do is for our panelists, something we used to do around the campfire at Boy Scout camp, and that's what they call the round robin. So if anyone would like to, among the panelists, say, a sentence or two, sort of as a wrap up, and then we'll wrap up the session with respect to the timing. So please, anyone chime in among the panelists?
Well, I would just like to say, this is Tatiana, that thank you, Ursula, for everything you said about the bridge that needs to be built between the sciences and the rest of humans. And I really appreciate that. It's something that I am very committed to as well in my work. So I'm very glad to find you here on our panel. So I hope to be in touch further. Thank you. And thank everyone for your amazing reaction to the book. It was something we all worked very hard on, and it couldn't. It's as good as I hoped it would be, and better. So thank you.
It's Kusumita. I just posted in the chat. Please, if you're in a position to write and publish a review of the book. Please do that. It might not occur to us every day, but once you think about it, there'll be possibilities. It doesn't have to be a review in a scholarly journal, just anything that gets the word out, because like we keep saying, the PDF is free.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add is, with thanks again to David, Tatiana, and Kusamita, is if there's a wonderful newsletter from UNEP that has a lot of news from Faith for Earth, and we also have a newsletter for the Forum on Religion and Ecology, which helps promote this book and other things. And if you have things you'd like to share, please send them to us at the Forum on Religion and Ecology to share examples of what you're doing and maybe how you're using the book too.
I'd like to just thank Iyad and then Ian and Alzmira for all of the amazing help and assistance in putting this together, and what an incredible team you all continue to be. And thanks for your continued assistance in all of this work as well.
And I just also want to join in with the thanks, and also to say that one of the wonderful things about the book that is fairly small is that pretty quickly it invites so many voices into our students' imaginations, or those who read it. And I think having that active conversation start going in their heads enables them to start having the conversations in real life with people. So thank you so much for so much in such a small space.
Well,
thank you everybody for being here and with us, and thank you for your partnership, and I hope this is only the beginning of a long-lasting partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all our dear panelists and speakers today. You did an amazing job. We learned so much from you. Special thanks to Dr. Iyad Abou-Mogli and the wonderful staff at UNEP. I don't want to forget anybody's name. Faith for Earth. You've done all the hard work to prepare for these dialogues, and I know you're just in the middle of them right now, and especially for this session, and all the technical expertise that you brought together to make this happen. And last but not least, let me thank each and every one of those who attended and participated in this session. Your presence, your comments, your questions helped enrich us all. As we close out, let us remember, we, our planet, and our future are at a turning point. We must together, and only by doing it together, can we make the right turn for a just, sustainable, and peaceful future for ourselves, for our children, for all of our fellow Earthlings. The difference needs to be time's a wasting. So let's get to work and make a difference that is needed. Peace and blessings to you all. Be safe. Wonderful wishes for the success of these sessions, Dr. Iyad, and for your team. Looking forward to attending some of the additional sessions myself. Once again, thanks again. God bless. Stay well. Together.
Thank you.
Thank you all.